Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. Some prices may be falling, but others, including essentials, are not. Food prices rose almost 11% in July compared to last year. Inflation is hitting all Americans, especially those least able to absorb the extra cost. Democrats passed what they call the Inflation Reduction Act, but we've all learned by now that what Congress calls something often bears no resemblance to what it actually does. Whether this act reduces inflation may not be known for quite some time, but what we do know is this legislation raises some taxes and gives you a lot more IRS agents, which are two things I don't really recall anyone clamoring for. Here to discuss the bottom line for Americans is one of the most popular hosts on Fox, including Sunday Morning Futures and Mornings with Maria, our very own Maria Bartiromo. Well, welcome, Maria. I have to be honest with you. When I met you several years ago, I dreamed of being on your show one day. I never imagined I would host you on mine. So welcome. What do you make of the current state of our economy?
Well, it's a great question, and I want to thank you so much for having me, Trey. It's an honor for me to be with you. I think we are in a major slowdown right now. We did have 2 quarters of contraction. First half of the year, contraction, which means the economy shrank. We are right now in the midst of earnings season where a number of companies are telling us that the rest of the year will be a lot slower than the first part of the year, and we may very well be in a recession right now, and that will deepen later this year and into next year. It is beginning to hit jobs. You've got a number of companies right now telling us that they're doing a hiring freeze because corporate America is getting squeezed, as are individuals, based on what you just reported, inflation at a 41-year high.
All right, Maria, I was a very mediocre prosecutor. I don't understand these issues nearly like you do, but I see job numbers look good some months, but inflation numbers are not good. Interest rates are going up. Retirement accounts are going down. How do we, or how do you reconcile or make sense of what seems to be competing evidence sometimes?
Well, the bottom line, Trey, is that our wages are going up about 4 or 5% year over year, but the cost of the essentials of the things we buy is going up 8.5% to 9%. So the bottom line, as you called it a moment ago, is that we are not keeping up with the costs of the items we are buying. Just take essentials: food, fuel, and rent. Over the last year and a half, these 3 things have been a nightmare and have been rising significantly. Now, in the last month, the month of July, oil prices came down from the highs, so that took some of the hurt away. The consumer price index came in up 8.5% in the month of July. That was better than the 9.1% we saw in June, but still, it's up 8.5%. You look at a dozen eggs, you're paying 30% more for a dozen eggs this year than you were last year. You look at the price of meat, fish, you're paying 20% higher today than you were a year ago. So even though our wages have crept higher, they are not keeping up with the rate of inflation, and that's a problem.
All right, let me ask you kind of a broad question that's at the intersection of economics and politics. Do administrations take too much credit when the economy is doing well and therefore absorb too much blame when it's not? Or do we get it about right in apportioning credit and blame to different administrations?
Well, all the administrations from, years and years back have tried to take credit for a strong economy. It's not always that way. There are a lot of factors that go into this. But right now, what we are seeing is bad policy resulting in bad outcomes. So you know that in March of 2021, the Biden administration passed the COVID relief package, $1.9 trillion. At that time, inflation was at the beginning of January 2021, inflation was at 1.4%. By the time March rolled around and they signed into law, Joe Biden signed into law the relief package, inflation was up to almost 3%. And then more spending and more spending. Forgiveness of student debt, a $1 trillion infrastructure package, threats of a $5 trillion spending package. All along the way, inflation was creeping higher. So I would say you have to look at this administration and the Democrats' spending along with the easy money coming out of the Federal Reserve as far as who's to blame for this inflation. Look at the word inflation in the dictionary and you'll get too many dollars chasing too few goods. And that is exactly what we've seen over the last year and a half. Too many dollars coming at this economy, chasing too few goods sends prices higher. And that is what we have seen on inflation. So sure, it's not always the fault of an administration. It's not always the fault of the Federal Reserve. This time around, I would say bad policy resulted in bad outcomes.
One of the most popular hosts in all of television, certainly on Fox, Maria Bartiromo, thank you for sharing your expertise. I don't know how you have time. You work every single day. So thank you for carving out time for us, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Trey.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.